Hey everyone, Nick Eilerman here from Nick Eilerman Films. Got a chance to rent the DJI Ronin, and we're going to go through it in this quick video. Hey everyone, Nick from Nick Eilerman Films here. Got a chance to shoot a styled shoot last week, and for those of you that don't know what a styled shoot is, this one in particular was a wedding styled shoot. So what we do is we planners, vendors all get together, donate their services to be able to put on a mock wedding. So setting up tables, linens, plates, flowers, flower arrangements, showing off wedding dresses, different companies, photographers, videographers like myself. We all get together to put together the styled shoot, and it's great. It's great for publishing, just creating content. So essentially it's a day where we all create content together. So this particular day we were at South Carolina Society Hall, which is a venue in downtown Charleston. And we got to put together an awesome day. It was beautiful. The weather was great. The lighting was great. The models that we had for the shoot, they looked great. So you'll see the final version of that video at the end of this video. But before I got there, when I was invited to do the shoot, I really had in my head the need to really just have beautiful, super stabilized cinematic footage. And with the 1DX Mark II, I do a really good job of kind of being able to do that handheld, just being patient, be able to just kind of move the camera around in a certain way to where I get the effect I want, and it's not jerky enough to where the stabilization software that I use with Final Cut Pro is not able to handle it. It does a really good job. So if you've seen a couple of my films, the stabilization is great. It doesn't look too shaky, but it doesn't really just give it that extra oomph and make it the most cinematic version that I kind of see in my head. So in that regard, I went to borrowlenses.com. I rented the DJI Ronin. They didn't have the DJI Ronin M available. The Ronin S obviously was not available because it is in super high demand right now. So I got the DJI Ronin extended arm unit right here. It is extremely heavy. It is very, very heavy. So a couple things that I wanted to tell you guys in this video. I wanted to go over what I used with this rental, what I didn't use, and then what do I do differently doing a styled shoot or a wedding for that fact over again. Just what kind of equipment I would use in my experience and kind of feedback from using this. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so I understand that was a completely long intro, but that is just kind of a recap of why I rented the DJI Ronin. I knew it was big. I didn't think it would be this big, even though I saw a bunch of pictures with it. It really makes the 1DX Mark II, which is a big camera, look relatively small in here. So first things first, I took it out of the box. Borrowed Lenses does a great job with shipping you everything very well protected. So this is just one foam organizer out of the case. There's actually two of those in here. One for the main unit that sits part of the gimbal that sits in the bottom, and then you have everything else that kind of sits on top. There's all kinds of stuff in here. So you get a bunch of cables. So this is a USB cable that plugs into the back here where the battery goes. They give you a micro HDMI cable. I think this is a mini HDMI cable. I think this is a B&C cable. I don't use these, so forgive me if that was wrong. So we have those three, or those couple of cables. You're going to get a bunch of other things too. My rental did not come with the actual power cable, this cable. In the unit, it just came with the power supply to plug in and charge the battery. So this is actually mine, so I need to keep that because I'm actually returning it right after I get this video done. So give you this power supply, return checklist, some padding. This is mine. I use that to kind of keep everything from wobbling all over the place. So we'll go over that really quick in the video. You have these two extension poles. I didn't need to use these. I was able to, the extended arm, I guess this is the extended arm. I'm not sure, this is the first time I've rented this, but I didn't have to use these. So I know with bigger cameras, you have to you make some more changes, but I didn't have to use them, so wasn't too worried about that. Anyway, so this is everything you get. They also give you, in the rental, they give you a toolkit. So inside this toolkit, this is actually mine. Oh, by the way, this thing is awesome. I don't know where I got this from. It's a three-legged thing, but man, this thing's awesome. What this is, and I know you can't see it on the video because we're kind of far out, but it's got like a carabiner clip. It's got an Allen key for a mounting plate, like a Manfrotto mounting plate on the bottom, and then it has like a standard mounting plate key, and it's just really handy. I snap it on my bag, and it's great. So let's see if I can zoom in, if you can see that. So this is, get out there. That's what it looks like. It's got a little Allen key on it. Okay. That might not be in focus, sorry about that. But, so in this toolkit, we have a bunch of Allen keys, a bunch of hardware to bolt on the mounting plate to the camera. This is for a lens stabilizer. So you can use this for stabilizing the lens. It goes right underneath here. I didn't need to use it. I really just didn't want to put it on, but even when I tried to put it on, the lens was too far out the way I put the plate on. I didn't want to take it all back and redo it, so it didn't do anything to my footage, but some of the videos I watch, they say that, the vibration from the autofocus or just a little bit of difference in the tilt of the lens. Obviously, if you have a heavier lens, it's going to make a difference. Nothing bothered me, so I just didn't worry about it. So they give you this kit to take care of, putting everything together on here. So let's dive on into the gimbal itself. So you have the gimbal here, and let me pull this off. And so you have, this is the test stand. I call it a test stand. You can call it a balance stand. But this is where essentially, you test out to make sure that when you put the camera on, everything is in balance. And there's a couple of videos that are online, and you can follow them and see where, what's the best way to start balancing this. And I'll put the camera on here just to show you. Before I do that, let me take this off. Okay. So I did a little bit of research before I rented this just to make sure I was ready to go, because I was actually getting the rental the day before, and I only had one day to get everything right and put together. So essentially what I did was I went online, and everyone kept talking about renting this Manfrotto quick change adapter plate. Just because taking this off, if I wanted to use this in the monopod or move it back onto the gimbal, this main plate would not fit on my other stuff. So this would make it easier to change over. However, when you put it on, you are adding more weight to the plate, which you can balance out, but it turns it into one plate into two plates, and then when you actually put the camera on here, and you know, you have it's a bunch of extra weight, plus you're putting that back onto this plate. I didn't have a problem with it, but it is, I can't tell you how heavy this is. I didn't weigh it, but that shoot was a little over 5 hours, and I had to take a lot of breaks. Luckily, I was directing most of the scenes, so I would direct what I needed to, and then I would just take it away, and you know, the photographer would kind of do their thing. I was able to take a break, but I mean, this thing, holding it out in front of you is so heavy. It is. You're so quickly rewarded by the cinematic footage. You're looking back at the camera, you're like, man, this is awesome, but it is so heavy. It's so heavy. So the DJI Ronin S, hopefully I will be getting that because it's not as heavy, and I mainly shoot on a monopod, so it's just kind of right. It's like a perfect mix of the two things I want. Okay, so getting back to this. So once you have the main mounting plate that comes with the Ronin, what you want to do is obviously you want to start getting this balance. So after you bolt your plate on here, there's multiple locations to actually, let me zoom this in, right here, there we go. Okay, so there's multiple places to actually mount everything in here. And I just put it on the plate to where I felt most comfortable. You kind of pull it in here. There's a little safety pin, just kind of move it out of the way, that way you can get it in here. Okay, we're back. The autofocus started messing up on me. All right, we are filming, by the way, on a Canon 80D. I love this camera. Even though I love the 1DX Mark II, I've had the Canon 80D the longest, and it's just fun. I can take it anywhere, hiking. You guys have seen the videos. It's a good camera, but can't do both at the same time. So let's get back over to this. So if you look at the base plate here, we have this latch, which allows this to move back and forth. And then at the same time, you're going to have the same latch up top on that Manfrotto base plate that's going to allow the camera to move back and forth again. My suggestion, the Manfrotto base plate, have a home position to where you put that on, and that's kind of where it stays at home. And then the main bottom base plate is much easier to move. And use that to actually balance the camera forward and backwards. So let's take the 1DX. We're going to slide it into our Manfrotto base plate, let it click in there. And what I did is I let it click, and as soon as it clicks, I move it backwards. That way, just right after that little safety latch is kind of where it stays home, and it stays happy there. So let's just keep it right there. Okay. Now, I've made this look kind of easy because I've already kind of pre-balanced this. So if I let go, it's just going to go forward. It won't really move left to right. So let's get this balanced here. So when you watch the tutorial videos, you're going to see that once you put the camera on, you can understand what's going on here. The first thing is moving the camera front to back. So let's go ahead and move this. Just kind of move it, get it to feel good. When you get pretty close, go ahead and lock it into place and then let go. And so now, in a perfect world, whatever position that you let go of it in, you want it to stay there. So you don't want it to go here, and then when I let go, it flip backwards or flip forwards. You want this to be completely independent. So here we go. So that's really good. And again, I'm making this look way easier than it was. When I first set it up, it took forever for me to set up. Maybe that's just me being a rookie with using this, but everybody says you can balance it in 30 seconds. That's after you balance it for the first time. So we have our front and back balanced here, and we have our left and right, which is pretty good. I'm not going to change it, but the left and right, down here at the bottom, you have two you know, they kind of look like wing nuts. Loosen them, and you can go left to right, and there's little indicators there so you can kind of see how much you're moving it left or right. And then one of the harder ones was the top and bottom. So although tilting forward and backwards is going to help you, you know, get it happy from leaning forward and backwards, what also does the same thing and is not such a minor adjustment, actually it feels more of a minor adjustment to me, is these two rails on the left and right side. So they're also going to contribute to it being too back heavy or too front heavy. So these two were the hardest, only because the way that it's set up, you can actually move one side higher than the other side, and that makes it challenging to actually you know, just move it up, get it balanced, and lock it in place. You got to actually physically turn it and see what numbers you're on, because you want it to be exactly the same on both sides. So step one, Manfrotto plate locked in position, main plate for Ronin slid forward or backwards to kind of get your baseline, and then these two for weighting left to right, and then this one right here for me falling back to forward, and then kind of repeat that. And then one of the second hardest thing for me was, and you can kind of see after I've kind of moved around, it's actually drifting a little bit backwards. That's okay. It might take a little bit more power out of your servos, but let's not worry about that right now. This video will be an hour long if we keep talking about that. So the next step is, and the second hardest thing, like I said, was this part up here. This adjustment is what is the whole gimbal. So this whole left to right, that's another problem I ran into with the 1DX and everything, and this being a rental. Over time, it's sagged so much, I guess, from people using it, that this thing is always kind of just barely tapping the bottom here. I know I'm digressing a little bit, but if this thing is tapping the bottom at all or touching the back, in a minute when we go to show you the app and doing the adjustments, if this is sitting on, if it's bumping anything and you think it's out of sync and you're going on your app and you're manually adjusting it to move back in place, when you pick it up, it's not going to be right. So my suggestion is, when we get to that step, what I did was I actually turned it and kind of lifted up an arm here and got it to where I was just a little bit higher up on this, and then I was able to just see how it was operating. Okay, so getting back to the other part back here. So this part where the battery is, this was another challenging part, because this actually, like I was saying, influences the whole entire function of the gimbal from the handle perspective. So your front and back could be right, your left to right could be right, but this part right here, and I'll show you an example. So when I go to pick this up, if you can see, when I tilt it, see how it kind of falls down, and then if I tilt it back, it starts to twist like that. That is what I'm talking about. So that is one of the more challenging adjustments, is this this up here. Since I'm returning this today, I'm not going to worry about that at all. Trying to redo it and show you guys, but the tilting left, the tilting right, and the forward like this, see how it's falling down, and then the backwards, that is influenced by this adjustment. So just make sure that if you're having problems with it swinging back to forth, it's not going to be your left or right, your front to back weight necessarily. It's mainly going to be this back adjustment. But as you can see right here, I'm pretty happy with the way that this is balanced. Right. because I made all those changes to it. So again, let's bring this back over here. All right, so we're gonna get this back over here, and so by just moving it, see how we're kind of coming over to the right. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment while we're on the camera. Okay, just undo that. And we're gonna move back just a little bit. Let's try that. Still too much. Too much. Okay, right there, feels good. So let's go ahead and tighten these down. Okay. So get that all balanced out, and we'll lift it up one more time just to see left and right. So pretty happy with that, just for our demonstration purposes. Okay. So the next step after, you're just gonna bug me, aren't you? Okay, let's undo this. Let's go ahead and get this happy again. There you go. Let's see if it's happy. Are you happy now? Okay, see? That's what you want it to do. Okay, let's look at this. Let's get the app out really quick. All right, so the app that you want to use, I'll try to kind of do a screenshot of this on the computer. It's called the DJI Assistant. All right, and then it's going to prompt you on this front screen. It's going to say searching for device. So what you want to do now, after you have everything pretty balanced, pretty well, is go in the back of the battery, hold down, turn the battery on, and just kind of watch your lens, because what will happen is if you've orientated this oppositely, say you're oppositely, if you've orientated it in an opposite direction, which means you put it on the stand and the handle is turned backwards, but you think the camera is supposed to be turning forward, when you turn it on, it'll just swing around and go back to the other side because you actually set it on the stand backwards, and your lens is free to just kind of knock into itself. So make sure, I'll just show you an example since I already know what's going to happen here. All right, so say we have it just like this, and we go and we turn it on. It's going to be a delay, but you want to just be aware of what direction it's going to kind of do its initial setup. Okay, so now it's happy, it's right here. I don't have my Bluetooth on. Make sure your Bluetooth is on. And it's searching for the device. Okay, it found the device. I'm gonna click on here. And Borrowed Lenses gives you a name and password so that you can put this into your app and it knows what unit you're using. You're gonna have 3 options here. You're gonna have motor, smooth track, panorama, and that's under the gimbal option. So at the bottom you have gimbal, control, viewer, and more. We'll just do gimbal for right now. So under gimbal, the first thing that I noticed when I was setting this up is you click on motor. Okay, so let's go back to the menu. So we're under our gimbal menu at the bottom left, go up to our motor option, and then when you get it, you're going to want to auto tune it. When you auto tune, it's going to go through each of the motors and get them happy to where they need to be. The problem is if you experience the whole entire unit like aggressively vibrating, and then once it's done tuning, it's still vibrating violently like in one area, it's just The problem is if you look at your stiffness, sometimes the auto tune stability is going to set your default stiffness after auto tune to like 88 is what it always does for my pan axis, and that's way too aggressive for stiffness. So the motor's really trying really hard to stay in one position, and you don't really need that. So I went online, found a video, and the guy was like, hey, immediately go into your stiffness settings. Anything that's like 80, that's your problem. Go there, bring the stiffness down to like 40. So I made mine 38. It's a little bit less than 40. I didn't have any problem. You see right here, it's perfectly not, drifting or anything like that. It's holding its position. When I filmed, didn't have any issue. So that was the first thing that I came into, kind of hiccup wise, but that's really the only thing that happened. Everything else after auto tune and changing the stiffness to get the motors to not be freaking out, making weird noises. Everything was fine, super smooth. One thing I do like about the app is the trim settings. So if for some reason that you tuned it, you're moving around, you're filming, maybe something got a little bit out of adjustment and you kind of see it drifting to the left or the right. So when you pick it up, it's just kind of hanging out on the left or right. The trim setting, you can actually go in and so let's do tilt. So right here on tilt, if you watch, I don't know how well you can see that, but as I'm doing the tilt, the camera's actually moving. So it'll move up, and this is not a way to control it. This is your offset. So this is how aggressive you want that offset to be. You could use it to your advantage. So, I was filming a part of the table, and just the way that my hands were holding it, I wanted the camera to be at a different angle. So I went into my trim settings on my tilt axis, and actually I just, I had it pan up a little bit. Further down the line, I realized instead of doing my trim setting to make that offset the way it was, let's just get this back to where we're at. There we go. So instead of doing my trim setting like that, I realized that I needed to go into smooth track. So that was the next thing I needed to do. So with pan smooth track, it's going to keep it to where when you're panning, it's not going to tilt up and down. But if you combine pan smooth track with tilt smooth track, that was my favorite. Because pan smooth track alone will not let the camera dip down or up. It keeps it like at a level plane for panning. And then tilt smooth track allows it to tilt up and down smoothly. So what I found, the way that I set this up is when I use pan smooth track on, tilt smooth track on, I was able to do these really cool shots where I could go in really aggressively and then I could just pull up, and then the camera would kind of delay, follow up. And then I knew when it slowed down, I could start bending down and then go into my next shot. So it was this nice delay and kind of fall before I went to the next shot. After playing around with it a little bit, I got used to it of how it was preset in the phone. So I didn't change how it was panning up and tilting. I just kind of personally adapted to it so that I could just move on with the day quicker. I was already on set, didn't have a chance to play around. I wanted to get these shots going because even though it's a styled shoot and you do have time to kind of get it exactly how you want, you'll start holding everyone up and you don't want to do that. So long story short, only options I used was motor, auto tune, checked my stiffness so it wasn't vibrating like crazy, lowered my stiffness to get it happy. I used the trim setting. If after the auto tune it didn't work the way I wanted it to, I was able to kind of adjust the trim. Down here under live data, you can actually see how much power each motor is using, and that's really an indicator of how much of it's trying to keep it into a certain angle because or why it's having to hold it in a certain angle with more power because you didn't balance it appropriately in the beginning. It's not a bad thing, it's just going to drain your battery. And by the way, I use this for that whole entire day. I'm using it right now. I've only used 75% of the battery, so the battery lasts a long time for me. It lasted all day. So all day for me of shooting, I'd say of constant shooting, maybe 2 hours of constant shooting, 2.5 hours. The battery says it will last about 4 hours. You can actually go down here into power, and if you go to viewer, you can actually, it gives you a capacity percentage of how much percent of the battery is left, and then how much power everything's using. So you can check that in viewer. Let's go back to gimbal. Okay, auto tune, number 1, stiffness settings, number 2, trim settings, number 3. Go into your smooth track. So step 4, pan smooth track is what I use. Step 5 would be tilt smooth track. The next step after that, I went into more. I turned off briefcase mode. So that's where you can actually take this handle and pull it up. And here, I'll just do an example. So briefcase is when you can actually take this, hold the handle like this, and the camera's going to point forward. So I don't have it in that mode. So I'm going to turn that on really quick. Let's see if it listens to that. There it goes. Okay, so see, in briefcase mode, I've turned it on, and now this is kind of how it's being used. So I can hold it like I'm holding a briefcase. Okay, and then when I come out of briefcase mode, it's going to spin around, and then I can actually spin it back around. And now I'm back to my default setting. So I'm going to turn briefcase mode off. So I didn't use that for the whole day. The only other things I used under the more option, I used the motor kill, which was nice because instead of having to hold it and power it down here, I was able to just do motor kill, kind of grab my camera, tilt down, hit playback, check my footage, and be like, okay, yep, that looks good, and then boom, turn the motor right back on. Let's see here. Let's go into smooth track. Okay, so also under more, they have a silent mode. I was shooting at 120 frames per second, so there's no audio on the Canon 1DX Mark II when you do that, so I wasn't worried about any sound. But there is a silent mode where you can click on it, and it gets very quiet. I don't know if that takes more power, but I didn't have to use it. But if you're at a wedding and you're doing a ceremony or something like that, you might want to use the silent mode. I didn't get into roll control, the calibration or anything like that. Basically what I told you, the motor, smooth track, and this more screen. Those are only 3 screens I used, and I had a great day with it. No problems other than being extremely heavy. But that's pretty much it. The footage is incredible. I'll get ready to show you the film here in just a second. But the footage I got from is incredible. I'm super happy with renting this. The experience it gave me to see just that different look that I could achieve from something that I wanted to create. The fact that it holds the 1DX Mark II with no problem. I really enjoyed it. Let's see, what else want to talk to you guys about. Okay, so that's what I use. What I didn't use, except for those options on the menu that I didn't use, I didn't use the remote control that comes with it. You can actually use this for, say that there's somebody holding the camera and then somebody's actually operating it with like a remote screen or something like that. All I wanted was the camera. It sounds crazy, but I was actually able to film everything in the camera, and I have used the 1DX Mark II so much that I know where it's going to get its focus points. I don't do the autofocus setting. I just do the box where if there's anything in the focus box, that's what it pulls its focus onto. I do not do the facial recognition or anything like that. I just have the main box option where you know, if something's in that field of view, that is what is in it. I set it to the center of the screen, and that way when I know where I'm at the center of the screen, that's what's going to be in focus. Everything worked out great, but I didn't use a second monitor because that was just more weight, more cables. I didn't use this because I was by myself. I didn't use, again, those screen cables. There's a couple of mounts that also come with it. So you get these clamps. So these clamps, they're quick release clamps, and then you can actually take these, put them on this bar, you know, mount a viewing monitor, you know, mount external microphone, anything like that. Those come with the kit as well. But other than that, that is everything that comes in the whole entire kit for the DJI Ronin. And all right, let's oh wait, hold on. So I have a checklist. Oh, what I would do differently. Yes, so what I would do differently with this setup is I would try to plan when I would be kind of taking breaks with this unit. And what I mean by that is we went from, for the styled shoot, we were inside, then we moved locations inside, and then we moved outside, and then we moved to a horse carriage. We were actually on a horse carriage as we were filming through the day. And those were a couple options that we didn't pre-plan and didn't know that we were doing. So what I would do differently is I wouldn't use this unit. I would have used a DJI Ronin S because everywhere you go, you have to bring the stand because there's no place to put. You can't sit this on the ground at all. You have to have this stand to rest it on. So the planner we were working with, the models we were working with, I had them kind of holding the stand when I wasn't using it and all that stuff. And like, you don't think it's a big deal, but when you're trying to make shots and there's like cars moving and traffic and you're trying to make sure that, you know, nobody picks up your stand because it's just sitting over there while you're filming, and then you get on a horse carriage and then you're trying to find out, you know, where do I put this stand on a horse carriage because I need to film and I need to put it, so what I would do differently is just have a different setup. It's exactly what I needed for the day, but for my line of work, I need the one pole handheld motorized gimbal. That's exactly what I need. So what I would do different, DJI Ronin S, and not use this big thing. Even though I love it, the footage is incredible. It doesn't fit in tight places, and when you're doing weddings, there's a lot of run and gun shooting, and if you can fit in more tight places, or you know, if the bride's getting ready, you don't want to have all this equipment while they're trying to enjoy their day. Same thing for like the wedding ceremony. So I think it's why the DJI Ronin S is so popular. It's because you can put the weight of a 1DX Mark II on it and still get the same, you know, look that you're trying to achieve. But other than that, that is a quick review of what I used, what I didn't use, what I would do differently when using a stabilized gimbal. We're going to go ahead and roll that footage of the styled shoot. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video if you love it, and I will see you guys in the next video.